North Carolina, 2017. Definition of incest. Incest is sexual relations between people classed as being too closely related to marry each other. The crime of having sexual intercourse with a parent, child, sibling, or grandchild is incest. The definition of inbreeding: breeds from closely related people or animals. That's inbreeding. Now, for shits and giggles, I decided to look up the states that have the most inbreeding in America. Now, we all heard that Alabama is one of the states where a lot of incestuous relationships have. So, let's see if they're on the list. Okay, Washington, Oregon, Montana, South Dakota, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and Sweet Home, Alabama. Okay, here's the story. Quote, "I can't believe this is happening," unquote, said Pladl's mother on a 911 call. But first, let's go back to why this call was even being made. Alyssa, between 15 and 16, would meet the 21-year-old Stephen Pladl online. She said he, quote, groomed her, unquote. He wanted her to run away with him and elope, in which she did. Stephen, now 22, and Alyssa, 17. By this time, in 1998, they would have their first child, their daughter, Denise. Alyssa would say that she gave her up because they couldn't take care of her. They were a young couple and they wanted Denise to have a better life. In actuality, Alyssa said Stephen was physically abusing their very little daughter. She said he would, quote, pinch her body until she was black and blue, unquote. He also put her in a cooler to muffle her cries. He would even smother her with his hand when the baby did cry. Alyssa was in fear that Stephen would kill their infant. So Alyssa decided to put their baby up for adoption. Stephen used to tell Alyssa that if she ever left him, he would commit suicide. So this young couple had a very tumultuous relationship back then. Alyssa made sure that it was an open adoption, meaning that when Denise did turn 18, if she reached out to the family, that they would be able to meet her. And I guess Alyssa felt by this time that Denise would be able to take care of herself at 18 years old from any type of threats or physical abuse that Stephen had previously. So, 18 years later, Denise Pladl is now Katie Rose Fusco. She was a high school student that had just graduated from Dutchess County in New York. She was also planning on going to Dutchess County Community College. Now, Dutchess County is in New York. They refer to it as a sleepy town. They said since the opioid addiction crime had hit there pretty badly, amongst everywhere else. Katie was raised in this trailer park in Dutchess County. There is a train that commutes from Dutchess County to New York, and that's how people, I guess, travel. Her adoptive father was Anthony Fuqua. He was a correction officer and a maintenance man. Her adopted mom was a secretary, and Katie even had a big sister. So she seemed to have a seemingly good life after she had been adopted with the Fuscos. Neighbors in the trailer park said that they watched Katie grow, and she appeared to be a good kid as well. She was a cheerleader when she went to high school. They called her a very reserved young woman. They say she had a talent to be an artist, and I did look at some of her online work, and it was beautiful. She had put together a portfolio depicting the struggles of women that faced American history. Katie had also planned to ultimately launch her digital advertising career online. So though she was young, she had goals and she had dreams. She still had a desire to meet her biological parents, and we know a lot of adopted kids, though they adore their adopted family members, they kind of want to know where they came from, who they look like, who they act like. So Katie began to do her search online, and she would finally track down her biological parents. When Katie found her parents online, she even found out that not only were they still together after all these years, but she had two younger sisters, 11 and 6. She would make plans to finally meet them. In August of 2016, all her plans had changed. She canceled college, and her plan to go live with her birth parents was the only thing on her mind. Nothing could stand in her way. She was 18 and she couldn't be stopped. She actually said, quote, she had a desire to get to know her birth parents, unquote. She went to live with them, and I suppose her adopted parents gave their blessing, or at least I'm assuming. She would arrive just outside of Richmond, Virginia, where her birth parents lived, in their 2-story house. Katie didn't know, but a lot of turmoil at this point was going on in the home before she arrived. Alyssa had planned on leaving Stephen and taking the children. Alyssa was working multiple jobs at this point, and Stephen was unemployed and seemed to not want to do anything productive with his life. And Alyssa, she just had had enough. So now Katie was living with her mom and dad and her 2 younger siblings. Things couldn't be any better. Not even 3 months later, Steve began sleeping on the floor in Katie's room, which was bizarre enough. Alyssa had enough of everything that Stephen had been doing at this point. She would leave the home and take her younger daughters with her. She asked Katie if she wanted to come, but Katie had decided to stay with her unemployed father in the home. Alyssa even had told Katie the real reason why she was put up for adoption, that her father had been physically abusing her when she was so tiny. Elisa said her daughter hadn't reacted the way that she thought. She actually said her daughter had no reaction at all, but still opted to stay with her father. From this point, Stephen had moved from the floor into Katie's bed. Alyssa said around this time, her husband, who is now in his early 40s, had let his hair grow out long past his shoulders. He was wearing t-shirts and the skinny tight jeans that the younger crowd would wear. He even started to look more edgy, like Katie. Katie would wear all black and had an edgy type look. She thought maybe her husband was going through some type of midlife crisis. Oh, he was going through more than that. Elisa would find one of her daughter's journals and some drawings indicating that Katie was pregnant. Her children told her that they weren't supposed to refer to Katie as their sister anymore, but as their stepmother, and if they told anyone, they would be made fun of. Elisa called Steve and asked him, was Katie pregnant? He not only said yes, but he said he had planned to marry their daughter as soon as his divorce from her was final. Wow. The couple had even had a baby registry, excited about the arrival of Katie's firstborn and the arrival with Stephen's firstborn. On July 20th, 2070, family members like his mother and Katie's adopted parents had attended the wedding. Family members had gave the blessings to this shit. Everyone was all smiles, disgusting smiles. Did anyone not know that this was wrong? Did anyone not see anything coming good from this venture? Did anyone not see the doom ahead? Katie even posted the pictures to her Instagram account. #JustMarried. #SimpleWedding. She wore all black in high heels with her obviously protruding belly, while her grandmother / soon-to-be mother-in-law stood next to this couple, all smiles. Even her adopted parents had came for this ceremony, this incestuous ceremony. What the fuck was wrong with these people? She would take her father's last name, Pladl, again, this time not as his firstborn, but his second wife. As a woman, how do you handle your daughter who you thought about for 18 years? What does she look like? What does she sound like? What is she doing with herself? When she finds you, you're excited. When she wants to come and move in with you, you're even more excited. But within 2 months later, at her arrival, you find out she's fucking your husband, who is her father, her damn father. This wasn't an old friend, a distant cousin, or a promiscuous sister. This is your daughter. I mean, totally speechless. And the father, he's definitely to blame. He knew this was his daughter. All the women you can have, all the women you can go after, you pick your firstborn? All Elisa could do at this time was to put a restraining order on Stephen to protect her younger daughters. The father and daughter's child arrived September 2017. They named him Bennett Pladl. The pictures of Katie, she looks like a proud, adoring young mother until you knew the backstory of this picture. Warrants were issued. Stephen and his daughter were arrested on incest and adultery charges and some other things. They would both bond out. Meanwhile, Stephen's mother would take custody of her grandson/great-grandson. It wasn't a good idea for Stephen to be seeing his daughter, at least not right now. So Katie, she decided to go back and live with her adopted parents in New York. She would call her father and tell him that she was divorcing him, breaking up with him, and that she wasn't going to have sex with him anymore. He picked up his son from his mother's home for some type of leverage. He was hoping he could convince Katie to come back by using their baby Bennett. Katie wasn't coming back. He was upset. A young woman, his daughter, who had been in his life for almost 2 years, wanted nothing else to do with him. He had left his wife for the daughter. His wife now had a restraining order on him, and he couldn't even see his other daughters at this point. His mother had custody of his son. His life was now spiraling out of control. How come no one saw this coming? So, a 911 call was placed by Stephen's mother. Remember the beginning of this story? Quote, "My son just called me and told me he killed his baby. I just got off the phone a couple of minutes ago. He told me to call the police. I shouldn't go there. He said he put the key under the mat to get into his house," unquote. After killing the baby Bennett, who was only 7 months, police would not say how he died, but he did not have any visible injuries. His little body was placed in a small closet in the bathroom. Then Stephen would drive 500 miles to Wingdale, New York, to see his daughter turned wife. At 8:45 a.m., he called his mother and confessed to killing his daughter Katie and her adopted father, Anthony Fusco. Yep, the one who was all smiles at the wedding was now murdered by his son-in-law. When Stephen arrived to Wingdale, New York, he would stalk their house from a nearby liquor store. He followed them that morning to New Milford. Katie was actually getting a ride from her adopted father to go to her adopted grandmother's house to clean for some extra money. It's unclear if Katie and Anthony knew that they were being followed by Stephen, but they were. When Anthony halted at a stop sign, Stephen pulled his minivan up to Anthony's truck and fired several rounds from something similar to a AR-15 assault weapon, spraying the car with bullets. They didn't stand a chance inside. Another 911 call was placed. Quote, "His wife broke up with him over the phone yesterday. He killed his wife. He killed her father. I can't believe this is happening," unquote, said the mother